a busy man. You're heading into town?
I'm actually going to go to Insomnia first of all, do a bit of work.
Oh, good man, yourself. Now we should say that this is really for Autism and Me, which is on RT1 on Monday night the 13th, 9:35 p.m. It's been a wonderful kind of. For me personally, just knowing your kind of activity with As I Am and the autism experience last year with the exhibitions that toured. Also, I know that RT had Life with Autism before. You're kind of part of that. Is it just me, or is there a much better awareness these days of this condition?
There definitely is. I think there's a huge awareness, and I think it's become something that's extremely topical. People are interested in it, people want to talk about it. 1 in 65 students in the school system have a diagnosis. What does that mean? Everyone has a cousin or a brother or a neighbour, so everyone has a kind of personal connection. I think what our job in As I Am and what the job of documentaries like this is to do is to move to the next step. So the example I use is, I'm aware Mandarin is a language, but I don't understand it, so I can't communicate with people.
Right.
So we need to move from awareness into understanding now if we really want to have inclusion.
Well, I know the autism experience was part of that, getting people to sort of understand what the actual experience is with autism. And you were recently in Clondalkin, the Garda are doing a new training program, and you were kind of showing them just the various different experiences. That does seem to be, thankfully people seem to be very open to this. They want to know, because the last thing they want to do is in any way, shape or form offend when they don't know idea what they're dealing with. And
like, I think on a whole load of issues in the last number of years now, and we've become a lot more of an inclusive place, and I think whenever we want to engage people and teach people more, there's a huge openness to it. I think our challenge has been that in Ireland we kind of like mainstreamed a lot of people with autism. We moved very quickly, but we did it in a very Irish way where we kind of said we won't talk about it. So as a result, we have a huge amount of people to teach and to give the information to. But I agree, there's this huge openness and willingness to learn when the information is provided.
It does strike me that to me, I was thinking lately that really, I mean, we're all have autism of various different degrees, because we all have our quirks and we have our sense of and it's, certainly in the artist world I would feel that's a strong kind of consideration. I mean, do you believe that there is a I don't know if there is such a thing that when everybody will basically be aware, or is it something that it seems a little bit, I don't know.
Yeah, it's strange. So in the 1980s they broadened the diagnosis of autism. It became a spectrum, and I suppose one of the things with the spectrum is it's a kind of a continuum, isn't it? There's not a clear start and a clear end.
Right.
And I mean, this can cause confusion. And I mean, whenever I give workshops explaining autism and the different parts, you can nearly see everyone in the crowd going, oh, I do that, oh my god, I do that, do I have autism? I think the important point to make is it's really good that everyone can identify with parts of it.
Right.
You only have autism if, I suppose, some of these traits and characteristics are clinically significant, so if they're impacting on your life and it's in a kind of a scale. But autism is one of those things, it's diagnosed a little bit differently, because it's not like a blood test, it's by observation and watching a person's development. So it's very interesting, and one of the things that is fascinating is I'm still meeting people in their 40s and 50s who, when they were growing up, they were just called weird. Sometimes they were treated for mental health difficulties, they were misdiagnosed, and they've only maybe got diagnosed now because their child has been diagnosed, or because there's been breakthroughs and people have begun to reassess things. So their whole lives are beginning to make sense. So I think there is that whole movement where there's kind of a lost generation of people,
I know that you've said yourself that it's not so much well, the key to understanding it in a way is it's just that people have developed differently, as opposed to there's any kind of real kind of would say disability, in the sense that they're not in any way kind of not mentally developed. It's just that idea that there's a different way of thinking, and that's what's the important key to it is.
I think it is, and I think the thing that people have to bear in mind is that autism is a very broad spectrum, and I suppose one of the things I'm always conscious of is when people are listening to me talk, and it can be very different to maybe when they meet other people who have autism or people with very high support needs. And I think the thing that we have to bear in mind is that when we're trying to support people with autism and we're talking about autism inclusion, what we're talking about is enabling every person to reach their personal potential. So for one person that might be to go on to work 40 hours a week and have a wife and kids and live completely on their own, but it might be as fantastic and as amazing and as much of a journey for somebody to get to a point where they live in an independent living setting, they're able to work maybe part-time, and maybe they're able to travel independently. So I think we have to, part of actually becoming inclusive is actually we have to reassess our idea of success, I think, in Ireland, and realise that will look very differently because people with autism can think so differently.
Well, I know the great Edith Piaf had a fantastic quote. She always said, use your faults and use your defects, then you're going to be a star. So that idea that the very things that make you different are what make you brilliant, that make you kind of have a degree of seeing the world maybe slightly differently than the person beside you. And these things are to be celebrated as opposed to, we should all be exactly the same. We should all.
I think it was Albert Einstein that said, everyone's a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will spend its whole life thinking that it's stupid. And I think that's the experience a lot of people with autism in terms of education, in terms of work, in terms of how community works. The whole way it's built just completely doesn't enable a person sometimes to show their strengths and to be able to participate. So I think there is that bit that we need to actually realise that people have to do things in a different way, but their abilities can still be there.
You beat me at quote Trump, so it's too early. No, I was thinking from your own personal experience, you're like me, you're young and dynamic and a great kind of giver to the community and obviously sexy and attractive like me as well and all that. Was there a point in your life when you realised, I can help here, I can step out and actually talk for people who may otherwise not have a voice?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think it was really for me when I was in senior cycle in school, and I'm at this stage in my life where I'm socialising with other people, I'm in school independently, I'm about to do my leaving cert, none of which those things are things my parents would have foreseen for me, I suppose, when I was very young and I was in a special school and I had very high support needs. So I guess in that sense it was at that point to realise, I suppose, that I was in a unique position as somebody who had been in special ed, had been in mainstream with support, had been in mainstream independently, to try and give a voice to those views. And I suppose around that time and around over the last number of years, there had been a lot of movement on other issues, mental health being the key example where we were talking a lot more. And I feared sometimes at this point where we were talking a lot about these different issues, autism was still something over there, kind of cute and cuddly, kind of something for policymakers to deal with, but not actually realising I actually meet this every day and I have to do something about it too. So I think that was kind of what brought As I Am about,
And I think you're only 22 now. Or
22, getting old. Yeah.
Holy moly! I can't quite fathom what you might be up to when you're 32 and 42 and all that. I mean, have you thought about? I know Higgins is a good president, but have you thought about
I'm okay. I think I like my job better.